beat you up. Well, I didn't mean I beat you up. I just mean I up before you. And yes, judging by the viewer count, I'm up before all of you. That's all right. I'm not one of these people that hangs around and waits for the audience to wake up and come to me. I'll talk anytime, anywhere, any day, and I don't need anybody to be listening to me when I'm doing it. There are a lot of us like that. Thankfully, we got rid of some of them last night in Queensland. That would be the pathetic Stephen Miles-led Labor bunch of corrupt assholes that have sat in a position of power over Queenslanders with their cohorts for the last decade or so. What did we replace it with? David Christofouli, who I think made himself the smallest possible target during the campaign that anybody could possibly make themselves in a political campaign. The smallest. What I'm finding interesting this morning, though, even though pundits called this election at about 9:30 last night, hello, Black Sheep, you are awake. Love your work, brother. And g'day, Brett, g'day, Paul, g'day, Dan. Dan, haven't seen you around for a while, brother. I hope you're well, mate. So, yeah, Christofouli gets elected. And Miles loses. What we did come very close to, folks, was a hung parliament. And it might have been hung in a nice way because independents and the Katter Party, last time I checked the election results before I went to bed last night, I think the Katter Party had already managed 4 seats. I think One Nation were yet to score any, and there was an independent elected in Rockhampton, who I think we met when we were up in Rocky with John a while back. So congratulations to her. And I think everybody who stood, independent, who stood trying to make a difference, congratulations to you. I hope you got enough to cover your costs out of it. And if you didn't get enough to cover your costs, then thank you at any rate for doing the best that you could to give Queenslanders a choice. And I think the election result has borne that out. Stephen Miles, the incumbent Labor moron in charge of Queensland, refused to cede the victory last night. He has said that the seats are too close to call. There are about 9 seats still left to decide, and the vote is very, very close. So I think the Katter Party have lifted. They've got 4 now. I'm not sure if they had less than that before, but I think they've got a couple more. And thank God for far north Queensland. What can we say? Although I am extremely surprised to see Cynthia Liu, the woman who is selling off parts of Australia to the Chinese, almost elected unopposed by the look of it. I think she received probably twice as many votes as anybody else in, is it Cook, that she's part of? I honestly don't understand how that could be. The people are, well, maybe just the people down south are just starting to wake up. Maybe she's bluffed the ones up north. And let's be honest, there's a lot of shit that goes on in far north Queensland that the rest of Australia is completely unaware of. It is just so far away from the rest of Australia, we don't seem to consider it. But I can tell you, folks, we have to consider it. That piece of Australia is amongst the richest land in the world, and the Australian National Gold Reserve is located up there, and the Chinese are happily moving in. And we have Australian politicians, Queensland politicians, this Cynthia Liu, and her father, it seems, doing private deals with Chinese companies on our land, offering them islands. So we're going to look a lot more deeper into that as we continue with a new Queensland government. For mine, one of the interesting things about Stephen Miles' decision not to accept the result last night, there has also been a record number of postal votes. Wow, what a surprise. A record number of postal votes. Now, I don't know about you, but I am so wary of the postal voting system now that if I were to vote, and I couldn't make it on the day, or I wasn't going to be away somewhere, I would never use that postal voting system because it is, I believe, open to fraud. Why would a Labor Premier refuse to accede in what is the face of what is a pretty reasonable expectation that the Liberal Party will win the majority in the House or in the Queensland Parliament? Why would he refuse to accept that? Oh, because the postal votes aren't all counted yet. Really? What do you know about the postal votes we don't? Were the postal votes the ones that were helping Labor candidates come back? How many postal votes did Cynthia Liu get? I'd be interested to know. I think there's a lot about our Queensland election that stinks. But most of what stinks are the people we've been forced to put up with because we've been stupid enough to elect them in the first place. Well, maybe not. Maybe that postal voting system worked out for them last time too. But I am pleased to see the satanic Stephen Miles with his little pedophile tattoo on his arm. I am really heartened to see that prick is no longer the Premier. I am disheartened to hear that, unlike most other Labor leaders who lose and go off to some well-funded union job, this prick is roundly disliked by everybody in the unions, as far as I can tell, and nobody's offered him a job, so he's stuck sitting in opposition unless he decides he's, going to retire, because he will now have the Premier's pension to live off. Go and look it up. I think it's about $160,000 a year. It might be a bit more than that. It might be $193,000 a year now that I think about it. That's what this prick's going to get for the rest of his life, thanks to us, the Queensland taxpayer. Doesn't matter what state you're in. Doesn't matter whether it's a state government or a federal government election. What do you believe is fair remuneration for the service somebody might put in to government? Now, we have a lot of thoughts on how a new form of government should look. Term limits for members would be a leading part of that. So let's say we had term limits in and you've done 8 years. What expectation would you have of taking your $200,000 a year salary home with you following that? What expectation would you have that you'd be able to have a pension of somewhere around that sort of figure for the rest of your days after working for 8 years, hopefully successfully, hopefully creating change, hopefully helping build infrastructure? Is 8 years enough? I mean, where I live, in the southeast corner of Queensland, we have a road called the M1. It's the main highway stretching from the New South Wales border to Brisbane. It's, for the most part, 5 lanes wide in each direction, maybe 6 lanes wide in some places. But in others, it is still being widened, and I'm referring to down toward the border area. Now, they've been widening that piece of road for the last 15 years in various different parts. But right now, they're on the last section that goes right down to the border. That has been an abortion of a road for 2 years or more, 3 years or more, and it's still showing no signs of being cleaned up anytime soon. So if you're going to do big infrastructure projects and you're going to see them through, is 8 years enough? It seems not. You can't build 3 kilometres of road in 8 years for some reason. Does that have something to do with the building materials or the people who are actually trying to build it? I don't know. I'm sure. I know nothing about building roads, but I have life experience watching roads being built, and I shit you not, this M1 is the longest road I've ever seen built in history, by time, not by length. And they only ever seem to do 2 or 3 kilometres at a time, except for when they actually widened and began it in the first place, in which case we had a dirt highway for about 8 months, 10 months between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and you couldn't go over 60 kilometres an hour on it. But that's a long time ago now. So, is 8 years enough? Does it need to be 10 years? Does it need to be 12? And there we go. We're talking about long-term politicians again. I don't believe that long-term politicians are the case, and I believe a system can be worked on an 8-year plan where it might need to be a 10-year plan, but I believe it is possible, and this same plan would work for the public servants, that you could ostensibly be your own boss for 6 years and then train your replacement for 4. That can work. But it becomes incumbent to employ or to train your successor. And that means bringing them in on all the projects and letting them work behind the scenes on that for maybe 4 years leading up to their term at the top table, in which case you get another 8 to 10 years to finish those projects. But no one person, no one union, no one bunch of friends is going to succeed in milking the people for it. It might be a pipe dream, but shit people, if we don't dream, we're just going to lose everything. That's what these buggers do. They take everything from us, including our dreams. Interesting news coming out of America about P. Diddy. Turns out now there are children as young as 9 years of age being added to the lawsuit. It seems that part of what Diddy was doing was getting these young children at these white parties of his, these special parties of his, and he was giving them a fruit punch, and that fruit punch was laced with horse tranquilizer. Once the kids sort of collapsed, there was a party held in their bums. The whisper is anybody who went to a P. Diddy party, stayed for the after party, was drugged at some point and wound up with P. Diddy inside them. Probably not what you want to hear at this time of the morning. So, more and more coming out. P. Diddy has appealed to try and get out of jail where he's being held at the moment. He's being held in the same centre that Jeffrey Epstein died in. I wonder if P. Diddy's going to commit suicide. Pretty interesting. If he did, I wonder if they get away with it twice. Who knows? Weird shit. There's also Iran attacking, I beg your pardon, Israel attacking Iran. Now, I haven't read the news about it this morning. I'm just about to go and get a bacon and egg roll and look it up. But from what I read last night, it appears that Israel has struck some missile factories, some missile-making factories. The missiles that they sent, the Iranians sent toward Israel on the 1st of October were apparently built in these facilities. So they've blown up their missile-making facilities. I don't know. That might have changed this morning. They might have blown up hospitals and houses and God knows whatever else. We do know the Israelis aren't terribly fussy about what they throw their weaponry at, sadly. When is that going to end, folks? I mean, we've expected, well, have we expected? All that big intel drop last week. As little as, 2-3 nights ago. I said, watch out, Kamala Harris, big news coming for her. She's going to have to drop out of the race, apparently. Take it for what it is. I report it. I don't necessarily believe it. Neither should you. But what do we do when it all falls over? Let's say they do get to an election in America. Let's say Kamala Harris wins. What do we do? Are we that wrong? I don't believe so. Can we fight against that level of corruption? Well, clearly not the way we've been doing it. And that level of corruption is here in Australia as well, but on a global basis. What do we do if we can't win legitimately? What do we do if those we entrust to protect us refuse to? Because they don't understand their oaths. If they understood their oaths, they would know they haven't taken an oath to the Australian people. They've taken an oath to a corporation. I've had a couple of people reach out to me saying I was a bit hard on the coppers on Friday night, calling them cowards. Well, I don't think I'm being hard on the police at all. You are cowards. If you feel, and you know when your bosses are telling you to do things that are a bit on the squidgy side, you make the decision on whether you're going to follow that order or not. You have no lawful constraint upon you that says you must follow that order from your boss. In fact, you have exactly the opposite. You have a moral right incumbent upon you wearing that badge to arrest the evildoer who is ordering you to do evil things. But unfortunately, and I think it's probably by design, the recruiting process for police, probably right around the nation, are not looking for people like you and me with a moral standing and an inner strength. They are looking for lemmings. They are looking for young men and women who get off on the idea of the power of the badge and the gun. And they fan those flames. Now, when you're young, that can be a very exciting existence. But when you get a bit older, you realise it's maybe not all it's cracked up to be. And not the best way forward. So, yeah, I think well, if we've read this situation so badly, I can tell you that after this election, this federal election in America, if they haven't rectified the wrongs from 2020, if they haven't exposed the corruption, the illegality, I'll be changing tact on what I do. Because it's clear what I'm doing isn't helping. And what you're doing isn't helping. So maybe we can change tact together. But I firmly do believe they cannot let that election result stand. They cannot go to another election. However, I've also seen some interesting things from Trump lately, which made me think that if they can win the election legitimately, why wouldn't they allow the election to go forward? And then Trump can do what he says, roll out all the truth. And it certainly looks like Trump is going to win the election. Something that will be made a lot of in this coming week. Something that Robert Kennedy said yesterday. He let Americans know that the Biden-Harris administration 2 weeks ago put together a law. I don't know how this law got to be a law, but they've pushed a law to the Pentagon that now allows American troops to fire on American citizens on American land. This is something that has never happened in America before. US troops deployed on US soil and empowered and protected to shoot US citizens. That wasn't something that Donald Trump put through. That was something put through by the Biden-Harris administration 2 weeks ago. Kamala Harris, not being terribly smart, also came out in the last couple of days and told an interviewer that you can't have people like Joe Rogan or other podcasting people, me, others around the world. She didn't mention me. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. She's demanding that anybody who has a podcast comes under some form of control and restriction on what they can say. This is a woman running to be the president of the United States of America, the freedom-loving United States of America, and didn't have the brains to realize what she'd just articulated was the suppression of free speech. Something, thankfully, the Americans have enshrined in their paperwork, but unfortunately, there is no mention of any freedom of speech in Australian law. So I demand anything that comes from our elected leaders in the future. I demand that if we get power, if we gain control, balance of power, we demand laws in place protecting our free speech. Most Australians believe we have something that protects free speech. We do not. We have nothing. And the moment you go to a court and try and speak gibberish to a judge who speaks in a different language to you, you will understand just how bad that can get. And there are plenty of Victorians who've been through the court system and know exactly how that works. Ask Nick Patterson. So yeah, change of government in Queensland, but will it be a change? I don't know where Christopher stands on some of the draconian legislation that the Stephen Miles Labor criminal government were introducing. The mis and disinformation bill, the social media free speech suppression bill. I would hope it gets thrown out and is never heard of again, but I don't trust these bastards. Two wings of the same bird, and I'd like to shoot the bird. We need a new bird, bigger bird, stronger bird, one that looks after all Australians, not one that looks after themselves. Anyway, beautiful people, it is a bit early in the morning, 6:30 where I am, and 7:30 maybe where you are, or 7 o'clock, or I don't know, 11:45, or 2:30 in the morning. I don't know, but wherever you are, have yourself a bloody good Sunday. I will go now and have a bit of a read of the news and see whether or not there's anything worth looking at and coming back to talk to you about. But I would say to you today, folks, if you're in Queensland, I was going to say celebrate, but I don't know that that's the word. I really don't know that that's the word. I don't know that celebrating is going to help. I would ask that you be very watchful. I would ask that you hold these new members that you have elected to represent you in that place to account. The moment they don't do what they said they were going to do, you need to be in their office, not one or two of you, but hundreds of you, demanding an answer as to why they can't do what they promised. Demanding. Because this new Liberal national government in Queensland will hold power by such a small, tenuous grip that it could be destabilized very easily. Make sure they know that. Make sure they know that if they don't do the right thing by the people, then destabilization in certain seats will happen. And just like the Newman government of 10 years ago, they will be a one-term wonder that is forgotten to history, which will be great, make certain people feel wonderful, but will it help us at all? Not one iota. Except maybe wake us up to the fact that we need true independence in that place to really look after the people. Think about it, folks. And what are your demands? What do you demand of any political solution if you are to, maybe you didn't vote yesterday, if you are to return to the polling booths, what would bring you back? What policies, what would you require from a party for the people to attract your vote? Please write them down and email me, demands with an S at vofhq.com. I have received a heap of them already, and we are collating all of those, and we will go through them. We'll probably wind up putting it into certain brackets, because at the moment people are putting through some really great demands, can I just say, stuff I'd never thought of. And it's not one or two of you doing it, so it's not like all of you are coming up with the same demands. It's very different. Some are obviously cross-pollinating, and so that's what we want to do. We want to put it into a spreadsheet where we can keep track of the numbers on the different demands, and we can see what strength there are, and then we can represent that to you at some stage and say, well, here's what the numbers said out of your demands. Can we massage that at all? Can we hone that? Can we sharpen it and guide it so that we have the most effective weapon going forward into any political solution in the future? Give it some thought. Have yourself a great Sunday. It's looking a little bit overcast here. It might clear up a bit later on, but if you are going for a drive, remember, watch out for those dickheads, eh?